And welcome to the Brazil Expat Journal, the BJ you can trust. We got a twofer, guys. In case you didn't notice, I posted something last night. I kind of did it on the slide, and it was in a video showing some of the stuff that went down at this new cultural space that we just opened downtown called Espaço 337. So I really hope that if you are in Sao Paulo, you come down and see the spot. Here, I'm going to do a little bit of advertising for it. There it is right there. Espaço 337. You can find us on Instagram, underline Espaço, but you got to spell that like it's Espaco with a C. 337 Rua Dom José de Barros. I put the wrong thing there. It's not Dos Barros, but it's de Barros. DE 337, fourth floor, downtown Sao Paulo, center of Sao Paulo. So I hope you get there. And I also want to again thank Ace for the beautiful videos that came out about Sao Paulo. So I'll link those to the description of this video so you can watch that and discover a little bit about the city that I live in and why I love this city so much. It's gorgeous. It's a gorgeous city. It's an amazing city. But tonight, folks, tonight is a special night because I got somebody wonderful on. Her name is Imara, okay? And she's going to speak a little bit about being a global nomadic mom, okay? She's lived in over a dozen island nations and countries with her kids over the past 18 years. And she has training and background in alternative and complementary medicine, including herbal medicine and aromatherapy. She's also an enthusiast and practitioner of various dance, music, and song and spiritual traditions of the Caribbean, Africa, Brazil. Currently, she spends her time being mama first and building her newest internet-based global travel business, Find Your Free, to support families and single moms looking to establish a global living lifestyle. And we will put all her info in the description of the video, but you can find her on Instagram at Find Your Free, on YouTube at Find Your Free, on Facebook at Find Your Free, or at Imara Ifawuyi. I hope I pronounced that right. She'll correct me as soon as she comes in. And at TikTok at find.your.free. Okay, HE at the end. So without further ado, let me put this wonderful woman on so we can say hi to her. Are you there, Miss Imara? Let me put this picture up right there. There she is. Expat life with
Here.
children. How you doing?
Woo-hoo.
How you doing? There she is.
Yes.
Look at you. You look
Greetings,
gorgeous.
everyone. Boa
How are you?
noite. Thank you so much. Yes. We're
Boa
there.
noite, Imara. There's so much to talk to you about, and especially your time in Brazil. So, guys, this is the Brazil Expat Journal. So, of course, we focus on Brazil, but sometimes we go global. So, tonight we're going to do a little bit of both. But question that I always ask people that come on the podcast first is, first to tell us a little bit about your background, but segue right into what put Brazil on the map. Why did Brazil
Mhm.
become an interesting place for you to not just travel to, but eventually move to?
Mhm. So, well, let's see my background. I am a woman of a certain age, so I got some age on me, and I grew up in California. So, grew up in California a long time ago. And I from California. After I got to college age, I went to school. I ended up moving to the East Coast. I ended up going to school in New Jersey. And first of all, hi everyone, peace. I didn't get to say any real greetings, so peace and love, everyone. So I moved to New Jersey. I know where you're from, and I went to Rutgers, did my thing, and I think that is where I started getting really internationally like focused and interested, and then curious. Rutgers was a super international, diverse, university there in northern New
Were,
Jersey.
were you at the North Campus or Piscataway?
I was in Piscataway. Yeah, I
Okay.
was in Piscataway.
Yeah, we used to go
And
there a lot. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm from Cali, so there was elements of like diversity. I grew up in LA, and in Santa Barbara County. But when I got to New Jersey, that's when I was like, okay. So I just got into everything. I was into the comedic stuff. I was vibing with people from Brooklyn. I was hanging with people from Philly. I was learning, all the things that everybody was into in the 90s, right?
Cool.
Back in New Jersey. And then I started being kind of between New Jersey and Brooklyn. So I would
Well,
live in
a lot of
Brooklyn.
people, I'm
Yeah.
sorry to cut you off, but a lot of people sleep on Jersey, but it's situated in the perfect spot because you get that New York culture in the north, you get that Philly culture in the south,
Yes.
and Jersey, you kind of is an extension of those two cities. So it's a great place to be if you're into art, culture, and everything.
Exactly. That's what put me on. I mean, that was where I started getting into more holistic medicine, coming into who I was more so. One, because I was very quite rejected and like ostracized at Rutgers. I just didn't fit. I was very different. So it kind of pushed me towards New York more. So I started living in Brooklyn, hanging out with folks in Brooklyn, being on the hip hop dance scene and all of that, and also very much studying up under some great scholars. So I studied under Ivan Van Sertima at Rutgers, New Brunswick, who's a major scholar, and some Afro Brazilian scholars. One of them by the name of Kim Butler, who's written a lot of amazing scholarly texts on Afro Brazil. And so that is where my love for and my interest in Brazil began, and I started kind of practicing capoeira a little bit and just getting curious, more curious about Brazil.
Oh,
Hmm.
around what time was this?
This was in 98, I would say.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, 98. Hmm.
And then what made you, well, first off, your first big move, was it to Brazil or was it elsewhere?
No, it wasn't to Brazil. Actually, so I hadn't gone to Brazil yet. I was just, doing more scholarship, learning, practicing capoeira a little bit, not like heavily, but a little bit. But in 99, I went to Ghana. So that was my first kind of solo journey. And even with that, I was in a program. So I stayed in Ghana for like, I want to say it was supposed to be 6 months. It ended up being more like 8 months or so. West Africa.
Nice, nice. And
Hmm.
then how many countries did you move to before coming to Brazil? Did you establish yourself as a traveler? Like, when did you think, hey, I am now a global nomad? Now, my home is everywhere. You're like, when did that click for you? And
Ooh.
then when did you decide Brazil is a cool spot to like have as a base?
So yeah, no, I mean Brazil came a little bit later because after I came back from Africa, graduated from Rutgers, moved around the East Coast a little bit, ended up going down south, and at that point I had spent a lot of time in Mexico because I lived in SoCal. So I used to be in Mexico a lot as a young woman and before I went to Rutgers as a transfer. And so I was spending a lot of time in Mexico. I'd been in the Caribbean. I had done some things, but really Ghana was my first big global trip. And even then, I wasn't quite like, decided that I was this global nomadic or a global
Mhm.
citizen per se. It took me some time. But my next big international journey was to Brazil, and that was in 2021. I'm sorry, 2001.
2001. And where did you come
2000.
when you visited here?
So at that time, I came straight to Salvador, baby.
Of
What?
course. Yes.
What? Oh my God. Because my teacher she was a condom blade practitioner, my mentor in
Mm-hmm.
college. And she just was so inspiring to me. I love Dr. Kim Butler. I spoke to her recently. So because of, my enthusiasm, I went straight to Salvador. I didn't care about going nowhere else.
I
Hmm.
got you. And for those that don't
Hmm.
know, candomblé is one of the African, strains of the African faith that is very
Hmm.
popular here in Brazil. But Salvador, Bahia is like the hub for it. That's the hub
Hmm.
for a lot of Afro-Brazilian culture. And you fell in love, of course, right? Salvador.
Oh,
Salvador is another
Salvador.
planet.
Listen, like you said on the wonderful, on the YouTube with Ace. the last one that you did, the second one.
Mhm.
Brazil's a land of extremes, so it's like Salvador was my favorite place in the world. I loved it at the time. I was a young woman. I was solo traveling. I met people from all over the world that were like me. We just didn't want to leave. We didn't want to leave Brazil. We just,
Mhm.
everybody was there 6 months, 7 months, eight. Like nobody wanted to leave. So, and so it was so exciting. But I mean, I was robbed. I had been robbed at knife point, gunpoint, every point. And, I was had been accosted. I had so many issues, but it was still my favorite place ever. Can you imagine? Like I loved it so much. Like
There's a little bit of Salvador for you guys, and
mhm.
yeah, it's a complex place, Salvador. Yeah, because it can be dangerous. Luckily, fortunately for me, I was there for like a week and a half. Nothing happened to me, and I walked around at all hours of the night. Went into
Mhm.
every corner that I found. I felt really safe there. But you always got to think, when it comes to safety, there's always, the difference between a woman and a man. Also, even
Yeah,
me, I'm a very
true.
small person. There's some guys that
Mm.
are huge. So you got to factor that in when it comes to safety. And
Mm.
some places people say that they feel unsafe, but it
Mhm.
depends on a lot about who you are in your profile. Especially when we talked about Salvador, a lot of white expats that travel there, they feel unsafe, but it makes sense
Mhm.
because they stand out like a sore thumb. It's like, oh, that's the tourist. When I'm there, I don't stand out. It's like I'm part of the community. So there's a
Well,
lot of factors to consider.
the era I was there was a little more gritty for Salvador. I think
That too.
Salvador has
That too.
it was a little
2001.
more lit back in the early 2000s. So
Yes.
back then it didn't really brown, white, whatever it was, you were probably gonna get robbed at some point. If you use the city buses, they could get hijacked. I've been through
Hmm.
that. You know what I'm saying? Anything could happen in Salvador at that time. I think Salvador has gotten some of the security stuff under wraps. The last time I was there, it was way chiller. Doesn't mean I'm gonna walk around with my phone out all the time. You know what I mean? Or not expect to get pickpocketed. You still have to be aware. But
I
yeah.
feel you.
Hmm.
So now let's transition to my city, Sao
Hey,
Paulo,
hey,
because
hey,
you just
hey.
said it. It's a land of extremes.
Oh my God.
And guys, if you have not seen this video Ace did, and I'm not saying this because I'm on the video, it's fucking amazing. No, seriously, but you did
Amazing.
such a great
Amazing.
job at showcasing why I love Sao Paulo. I've seen so
Mm.
many documentaries about Brazil, so many YouTube videos about Brazil, but he really just like laid it out. Like it's
It was
daytime,
incredible.
nighttime. It's a lit fucking city. Like it's lit as hell.
Listen.
Um, so what brought you here and what made you fall in love with it? Because I always say on the podcast, I'm very honest. It took me a little while to fall in love with the city. Like I liked it when I first got here because it does
Hmm.
remind you a little bit of Philly, New York. So it's something I'm used to. But it took me about a year and a half to really fall in
Mm.
love. And then I
That
was like,
long.
I'm here. Yeah, because it's a kind of a
Mm-mm,
weird
I
city.
was like this with Sao Paulo. I'm like, what?
Oh,
Lit.
but tell
It took
me.
me 5 days.
Okay, so give us your Sao Paulo journey. How'd that happen?
So so that was interesting. So when I came back to Brazil, I had had a long stint where I hadn't really been in Brazil after I spent that first year in Bahia in Salvador. And that was again in the early 2000s. So I had a long break, right? So I came, I
Hmm.
had been traveling all over. I had 2 kids. I had done a lot in those 20 years, 18 years, whatever. And so during the pandemic, I have been kind of based in the Caribbean for the bulk of the last 9 years, but traveling in
Hmm.
and out. So I had left my island, St. Croix here in the Caribbean, uh, and I just decided I wanted to do something different during the pandemic. People were freaking out. It was just, I didn't like the energy. I was on a small island. I didn't like the vibe. So I was like, I'm going back to Brazil. And so I took my 2 children with me. I have a 12-year-old and an 18-year-old now. And we went to Itacare. So we ended up going back to Bahia at first. And we landed literally in Ilhéus, and went
Hmm.
into Itacare and ended up staying in Itacare for like 10 months, like almost a year. In which Itacare is a southern coastal town in the state of Bahia. It's amazing. but it's also very challenging for like a foreign person, right? And so we did
Mm-hmm.
that. And so I finally was like, okay, after having been scammed, lost tons of money, been through everything, looking for property and getting scammed, I just went through a lot. So I was like, you know what, let's switch up. Maybe we'll head back to the States and come back, another time. And we headed down to Sao Paulo, of course, And I got there and I remember we were staying in Bella Vista in an Airbnb. And I didn't really expect to like Sao Paulo. I had never really had a vibe for it, like a connection. I'd heard it was
Mm-hmm.
dope, but I just was like, whatever. But I was like, let me give it a chance. And so we showed up. We were in Bella Vista, and just even though it was so urban and like dirty in parts and everything, there was something about it that just hit me. It struck me. There was like the arts were represented there. There was theater and so many different places you could go to just enjoy the arts. And I was like, this place is dope. And we just
And the
spread out.
murals,
The
guys, look at these
murals
murals.
alone. That's what I be telling people. Like the murals in Sao Paulo alone will have you like what? Like shook.
Oh, I used to love
You know?
this one. This one was taken down after a while. I used to
Oh, I
love
love
this
that
mural.
one. I love the one of the indigenous woman. That's just like this
Yes,
long.
yes, that's a
Oh,
famous.
oh, like
Yeah,
the
that's
mirror.
Cobra.
So
Very, very famous artist, Cobra. He does a lot of these. I think he's done some art even in the U.S. in Miami and stuff.
yeah.
But the ones that have this type of style with like the multicolor like stripes over,
Mm-hmm.
that's Cobra.
Phenomenal.
Very
Oh
famous
yeah.
Brazilian artist. Yeah, guys, the murals here, and again, coming from Philadelphia, who that has the biggest art mural project,
Right.
I think in the world. I could be wrong, definitely in America, but it might be
Mhm.
worldwide. I think there's more murals in Philly than any
In
other
Philly.
city. So coming from there and seeing this down here, I was like, oh, this is my place, because I still love those
Amazing.
murals. Yes.
I love the murals a lot too. It's funny. Yeah, we have that in common. And yeah, but when we started to spread out and walk and move around, because you can really walk around central Sao Paulo, like around that area. So when we went
Isn't
to
that funny?
Paulista, yeah, you can
Yes.
walk. You can walk
That's
there.
something that I said in the video with Ace is that it's kind of like a paradox because although the city is so huge, at the same time it's still a walking city,
It's a
you know?
walking city.
It's a very
So
walkable city.
oh yeah. So then we found Liberdade. Okay. Now my kids, they come from anime and they love the Japanese arts and the different so it was like that just clicked for us, being able to go shop and get the Asian food items that we need and the things that we used to cook. Me and my older daughter, my eldest child, she cooks a lot. We cook a lot. So it was just exciting to have access to that
Can I
culture.
time out, time out, time out? What's your daughter's name?
My daughter's name is Kamania.
Kamanya. Shout out to this young woman because she is incredible,
Woo!
man. I see videos of her playing the bass all the time. She is kicking.
Yes,
I cannot wait to have her jam with us down here in São Paulo.
I'm
She is an
telling
amazing young
you,
woman. Yeah, and very
amazing.
talented.
Yes.
Very
So
talented.
we're
So shout out to
we're
her.
in a. Thank you
And
so
shout out
much.
to the little guy too, because we're gonna get into the parenting stuff soon. So what's your son's
Okay.
name?
So his name is Aliun.
We'll say that again. Ali?
Aliun.
Alium. So shout out
Yeah.
to him, who's now a little YouTuber himself.
Getting them
I
started
follow
early.
yes, I follow his channel.
He's
Very
been well.
cool
He's been
stuff.
asking to do his own YouTube for like 2 years since Brazil. So I'm like, well, if he's gonna keep asking.
Very cool, very
Mhm.
cool, very cool. So shout out to the kids. We're gonna be talking more about kids in a minute, guys. But I just love hearing these journeys of how people end up where they end up. So you connected with the city on various aspects. You ended up
Mhm.
in Villa Madalena, correct?
Yes, we got a place in Villa Madalena. Loved it.
Yeah, Villa
Mhm.
Madalena is considered one of the more bohemian neighborhoods. Madalena, like that.
Yes.
One of the more bohemian areas of the city, as you can see here from the pictures, guys. I'm showing some pictures on the screen in case you happen to be looking
Mhm.
at the screen.
Mhm.
And again, a lot of murals. One of the famous areas there, which we're seeing a lot of in these Google images, is Beco de
Yes. Mhm.
The Batman Alley,
Man,
and
yes.
very famous touristy area there. But there's a lot of
Amazing.
bars, a lot of art houses, galleries. You know, Villa Madalena is a spot for that.
Oh
But
yes.
okay, so you had your oldest is what, 18, 19?
She's 18, almost 19 this month. Exactly.
Okay, so
Mhm.
how old was she, before you decided that, hey, she's old enough, or I've planned well enough where I can start taking her on these journeys with me?
Mm, good question. Yeah. So her first international journey, she was under one. She was about almost one, and we went to Jamaica. So that was like our introduction to traveling together, as a little
Hmm.
family. I was always a single mom. Her dad was never present. And so we did Jamaica for about, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks. I had a friend who lived out there, and that was nice. But I wasn't really like overly like, oh, I got to travel some more with her or thinking along those lines. I was working online. I always have worked virtually, and I just was, living, being a new mom. And then I got an invitation to Hawaii. So we got an invitation to Kauai, Hawaii, and it was about when my daughter was a year and a half. So it really wasn't that much longer. And because I was working virtually and I had, a certain amount of money stacked and whatever, I was like, we've been invited to come. They're giving us a place to live. They just want, to have that experience with us being there. And we're going to go for it. And we moved to Kauai. And that's when we really kind of launched. I feel like it was like the official launching of our lifestyle, moving to Hawaii. We lived in Kauai. Then we moved to the big island of Hawaii. And Hawaii was just majestic, amazing. hmm
Cool. And then for long, so how long did you stay in Hawaii, first
We
off?
were in Hawaii for about a year and a half. So we spent some of
Okay.
that time in Kauai and then I think more of it on the big island.
But
hmm
but technically you're still in the US. Now let's
That's
get
still the US.
yes. Like, when did you decide, okay, not only am I gonna travel with my kids, I'm gonna take them to a country where they don't speak the language, you know,
hmm
where it's gonna be challenging for them, where because I think, I know I have a lot of friends with kids, and I think that for them is one thing that
Yes.
really concerns them is one, is my kid gonna be able to socialize in that country? I have some friends like Wande, who was on the show a while back, like she's pretty open about that,
Yeah.
as that her daughter didn't socialize very well here,
hmm
and then as soon as she could, her daughter just moved back to the States when she was
Exactly.
like 17, 18. So sometimes it doesn't work out with the kids. They don't fit
hmm
in, you know. Safety, of course, is another issue with
Yeah.
kids. Can they play outside? What type of lifestyle can they have? And in cost, because kids are fucking expensive.
And yes, yes, they are. Yes, they are, honey. Believe me.
It's like, where's the bottom of your stomach? I need you to find it.
My son is a preteen. What do you mean? I'm like, you're eating again? And like, I'm a very sparse eater. And my daughter, she eats more because she works out a lot.
Yes,
But I work out a lot too, but I still just don't have a huge appetite. So I'm
yes.
looking at my son. I'm like, and then he's so slender. He's Senegalese. His dad is from Senegal. So
Mhm.
he's so slender and tall. And I'm like, where did it all go?
I'm with you because I raised the boy down here when he was about that age, 13, 12. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning, like, hey, I'm hungry.
Eating.
I'm like, are you kidding me? And it's
Like,
like, where's this food going? Because it's the same thing. He
right,
was so skinny. I'm like, what's
slender.
happening to my life? Luckily, that phase passed. So, yes, it's expensive. So,
So
but look, just before we get into that, I was kind of going through your Instagram here, and I was showing it to the folks on
yeah,
screen, and I did notice that you did have a posting that kind of had to do with that. So, guys, if this is her Instagram, find you free. You see a lot of beautiful pictures. There's her son right there. And I think I saw
yeah,
your daughter towards the bottom. There's your daughter right there,
yeah.
and there they are making some music, playing some samba. It's all good. It's
Mm,
all in the family. But I did like this
um,
post that you had here, which is first steps to planning a move abroad with family. Research
yes,
the country or countries of interest, decide one or three locales that resonate, figure out if those areas fit your cost of living, plan children in school, research options, start learning the language. All these tips here. Tell us, give us a breakdown a little bit of
Hmm.
what you had to do as far as with your kids related to those tips that you put there for other people.
Good, great question. Yeah. So, for me, the first part, researching the countries, usually we would go places based upon an invite or just something that I knew was an experience that I felt like would resonate with me and my child or children if it was both of them. So it wasn't really that wasn't a huge aspect of it, um, but the most important thing for me was that they could feel, comfortable and competent wherever we went. So if that meant prepping with language, before heading out, doing online language courses, doing things to help them have an easier and smoother transition. These are the kind of things that I would do. Preparing materials for them so that for school purposes, if I wasn't going to try to enroll them in school in this next country, in this new place we're going to, that I was prepared to, be able to educate them in their basics. And then a lot of our schooling was more of an unschooling. So it's more of a lived school. So it was more about
Mhm.
having various experiences in different places. So yes, we would do the basics and get down, the STEM and the different things, the science, the math and the technology and all the things. But I always try to make sure that, I was prepared, for their school and their educational transitions.
Well, let me
When
ask
I
you, because you say, let me ask, I'm sorry to cut you off, because
Yeah,
you say
darling.
research the country. Like, what do you think are, your top priorities when you're doing this research? So it's not just a
Mm,
blanket term, research the country. What for
absolutely.
as a parent, again, I think we're talking focusing more moving as a parent. What would
On the
be
parent.
top priorities?
Top priorities, I mean, obviously security, cost of living, because like you said, it's one thing to travel as a solo person. It's a different thing to have a family. Families are expensive, so you're going to be looking at cost of living. You're going to be looking at the availability of quality schools if you're interested in putting your children in school. Um, ease of language acquisition, really, because it's one thing to go from English to maybe learning Spanish, maybe a little smoother than learning, a language, a completely unique language like Thai or something. So you're going to
Hmm.
be thinking about these things, you know what I mean? It doesn't mean that you can get them prepared, that much to be immersed in a new language altogether, but you think about these things. Um, Safety is really, the stability of the country. What is the
Hmm.
actual stability of the country? Is it somewhere where, it's a lot of crime, which Brazil is considered, high crime place. But we did it anyway. But, but, is there a lot of political instability? Because, we've spent time in Africa too, but I wouldn't go to the Congo per se with my kids. I'm going to be really considering the stability of the actual location in that way.
Hmm.
Um, and then just different things. Like I've always had more of a holistic lifestyle. I'm not like perfect with that, but I prefer to have a lot of access to nature. I want my children to be able to immerse in nature when they want to, or when
Hmm.
we feel like we need that medicine, because it really is like a medicine.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So I want to make sure we have access to nature, even if we're in a city. It can't just be urban lockdown. I need to be
Now,
able to. Hmm.
now I was gonna ask you because you mentioned education, and I have a friend who is a young woman. She's late 20s, 28, I think, 29. And she's at that age where she's considering having children, and she's in love with Brazil, but she's got a love-hate relationship, like most of us do
Like
with
most people.
Brazil. It's like a love-hate relationship, but we keep coming
Right.
back. Um, and one thing that she's concerned with is like, hey, one, she's a black girl, so she's like,
Hmm.
if I put my kid in a very nice school, like I work in a private school, it's a nice school. Hey, 99% of those kids are white. She doesn't. So first, like, a concern for her is my kid gonna feel isolated as being the only black kid at the
Mm-hmm.
top schools? Because you know that's just the way the country breaks down, folks. The rich folk
Yeah.
are mostly white, the poor folks are mostly black. So the people that have more
Period.
access to quality education are white folks. So she's concerned about that. So then we talked a little bit about the possibility of homeschooling, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's what you do, because you did say like alternative kind of education and stuff. Are you
Mm-hmm.
talking about homeschooling, and if so, can you break that down a little bit? Is that
Yeah,
possible if you're
of
traveling
course.
to different countries?
It's very possible. I do what they, and I don't like a whole lot of terms, but I do at times veer away from the sitting down and giving them worksheets, and every day we have a certain time of day where we're doing this or that. I have done that homeschool, that type of homeschool where we have books and we have worksheets and we have activities that we do for a certain amount of hours a day. But I kind of veered away from that as I became a more mature parent, and started incorporating some of that because they obviously need to get basics down. They got to know how to do math. They got to at
Hmm.
least the most basic math. They got to have some science back. So you have to do those things. But I got more into what they call unschooling. And unschooling is, it's more free flow. It's more, you think about what the indigenous people were doing before Western society fell on top of them. You know what I mean? Like they were just living. It was lived experience. That's how children learned. That's how they grew. The boys would be with the men learning the men things. The girls would be with the girls learning the girl things. And so it was just more of a natural way of educating, which is basically exposing them to different things, taking them to museums, taking them to, language classes or places where they can engage with people. Capoeira class, for instance, in Brazil. My son did jujitsu, capoeira, and karate. So he was immersing in different things, and all of these things are valid. They are all things he needs to learn. How to interact with people, how to fight, how to, develop the mentality of, a martial artist. So yeah, the unschooling is more about free flow. And yes, thank you. It's more about free flowing and allowing the children to just live, not sit at desk and be stagnant all day, because that's basically what school is for children.
Oh,
They
and
are
it's terrible. It's so terrible.
poor,
It's
poor
draining. You know. Uh,
training.
Yeah, no, it's training even for us who are educators.
Yeah.
I try to bring as much of this style into my classroom as possible, because it just sucks my spirit out, when I think that,
Mm-hmm.
hey, I'm preparing these kids to take a test. Which, okay, there's some merit to that, of course,
So,
being
mm-hmm.
able to focus on something in order to be able to pass an exam. Because sometimes in life, even at work, sometimes some tasks are that. It's like, listen to these directions and then make sure you plug in the right numbers to make this work. So those are valid skills, but it's a shame that we don't have more of a holistic type of learning environment. So I do my best in the environment that I'm in to bring that into the classrooms. I really like. Sometimes I see videos about schools in Europe, especially Germany. Germany seems to be really open with this, where they'll have whole schools that are just in nature, and the kids
Yes.
just go out and talk about, play with the trees, learn how to tie ropes.
Well, Montessori. They have a lot of
Yes,
Montessori and those kind of schools. There's another big school chain that is very much nature based and natural.
and the
Hmm.
kids really learn and they love it, and they're engaged in the learning process. It's so important to give the kids different perspectives on
Hmm.
learning, which is something I think as adults we learn. Yeah, and we learn too late. So it's wonderful that you're
Exactly.
teaching your kids early that, you can learn in a variety of ways. It can be from a
All
book, it
right.
can be from a YouTuber, it can be from just being on the street and just talking to people.
Yes.
Like, every day is a learning day for me.
Everything is learning. And then,
Yes.
and my children, like I have put them in school too. They've done regular school, they've done public school, they've done private school, they've done what they call unschooled schools. They
Mhm.
have done so many different things, but at least they are able to flex. And every time I had them in an unschooling situation with me just at home, or we were traveling or whatever, if I tried to enter them back into the public school system, maybe for a year, just for them to do something different, it was nothing for them. They would come in and be ahead of all the other kids, even though I'm not sitting down with them doing
Yes.
worksheets every day, doing math problems. I mean, some days we wouldn't even do all of that, but they still could
Mhm.
jump back in, and it was like they never left, or they were like ahead. So there's something to it. I don't know, but there's something to how we approach
I totally
education.
agree. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I have a really good friend up in Jersey she's got two boys and a pig, and she's amazing because she just lets those kids get dirty and they draw and
Yes,
they paint and they're just the coolest
I
kids.
love
They're
it.
so adorable. One year at the school where I work, we had her do a Skype call with my little guys, and they fell in love with them, especially when the pig came on. The
When the
pig,
what came on?
when the pig potato came on, the kids were going wild with potato. Potato's a sweetie. So
Oh,
shout out to Potato and
she has a little pig.
yes, and Kate Talon up in Jersey. She's a wonderful mom, wonderful
Oh,
holistic mom. And
amazing.
it's so funny how she gets so much flack for it. People just don't get it. They really don't get it. But her kids are going to
Some
be
don't.
amazing. They already are amazing. I'm saying they're going to be amazing adults because of that.
Period. Exactly.
Now, so we're talking education, and then let's talk a little bit about socializing. Because I remember you and I had a conversation once where you were asking me if there were like clubs or some type of activities that I think it was your daughter could do to like for her to socialize a little bit more.
Mhm.
Because I think she was taking Portuguese classes. I forgot what it was exactly. Like, because when you're doing stuff like this, unschooling or homeschooling or whatever, anything that's not traditional school, your kids aren't going to be socializing as much, and they're already in an environment where it's a language difference. What are some tips you
Mhm.
can give to parents to get your kids to socialize and to make friends in a foreign country?
Mm. Yeah, so for my children, for instance, for our last journey where we were in Brazil for about 15 months during the pandemic,
Hmm.
that was one of our biggest challenges, the social piece for my children. The one of the ways that I kind of navigated that with my son, and at the time he was about 10, I put him in a lot of so I decided on what I understood his interests to be, and then I would place him in environments where he could be with other kids that were doing the same thing. So that was martial arts for him, that was
Hmm.
art. He was doing some drumming and some music stuff when we were in Bahia. And it was amazing because even though he couldn't really make those deeper level friendships or connections just due to language barrier, he picked up some language,
Hmm.
and because he was speaking more Portuguese than my daughter ever picked up, even though he was younger, and
But the young kids learn fast,
they
man.
learn fast.
The
They learn
younger, the better for learning. Yeah, they
because
pick
my
it up fast.
daughter was in France and Mexico and different Latin countries when she was younger too, and she was speaking French and Spanish like nothing. In Senegal, she was in places she was speaking French and Spanish, but as an older child, she didn't really pick up the Portuguese. So for me, my suggestion is just make sure you kind of keep their activities that they've been doing wherever you were at,
Hmm.
and find ways to transition them into those things, in the local environment, where you move to, and just stay. The social piece. I mean, looking for meetups. They have meetups. I know in Rio de Janeiro, we did when we were there. Did a there's a group that we found on Facebook of parents that were foreign. Everybody was from all over the world, and they would meet up regularly. So we met up with
Cool.
some people there. Yeah, so you can find groups on Facebook. You can go to classes and courses and different things, all while you're already training them and getting them trained in the language. My daughter, for instance, she didn't get to do as much socializing. I mean, I had her training in music and stuff like that in Bahia, so studying with basses and stuff like that. But she got into the gym, so she started doing her own martial arts classes and her own, back and forth to the gym, doing the classes that the gym offered, and that was an opportunity for her to kind of mainstream a little bit and connect with. the local folks, more, because it's
Mm-hmm.
easy to isolate yourself or to isolate into groups of just Europeans or foreign people and not really even connect with the locals. That's very much easier to do, especially because of language commonality, right? So,
Okay.
in Bahia, there was Europeans and different people up there that we kind of connected with, just because obviously we could speak easily to each other. But,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's important that the children socialize. And if you're going to be traveling with them, you want them to get to vibes with people in other cultures and, in the
Cool.
local culture. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's smart to like mix it a little bit. So,
Mix,
you have stuff
mix
that's a
it
little
up.
bit easier with English speaking and then keep with the locals.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, oh, I totally lost my train of thought, guys. I've been working all day. My brain is
Good
fried. Uh,
working. It's all
I was
right.
gonna ask you something about that, which I totally don't remember what it was. So
It'll
I'll
come
get
back.
back to you. Yeah,
It'll
it'll
come
come
back.
back to you. But as far as kids, guys, I think it's so important that you listen to the children if you're taking them on this
Mm-hmm.
big journey because they're part of this too. They have feelings, they have thoughts. There's going to be things that they like and they don't like. I remembered what I was going to say. When you're talking about research, I think one thing that's important based on everything that you said is research an area that has these amenities,
Mm-hmm.
has these
Yeah,
things
minute.
for kids to do.
Mm-hmm.
Because you may end up in a really nice beach town, but there is nothing there, Itacaré,
Right.
maybe.
Well,
Right?
Itakare had a lot of stuff, so it was
Oh, had a
good.
lot of stuff. Okay,
Yeah, it
good.
had a lot of stuff.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because sometimes you end up in a city where, as for an adult, it's nice, but for the kids, it's
For the
like they
kids,
gotta
not so
have
much.
something to do. They gotta have something to do.
Yes, they
And
do.
Sao Paulo is a great city for that.
Woo.
Rio, I imagine, if you're into that vibe, are these cities where there's always something to do, where you can put your kids in there, have them socializing, have them busy, doing something, and not just sitting
Mm-hmm.
at home on their phones,
Exactly.
which is really important.
And
For learning language, did you start before you moved to Brazil, or was it like on the ground learning?
yeah, so I will put my children, I think we have done some language courses prior to arriving on Monly, on Preply, so some of the
Hmm.
bigger language learning websites. Um, Monly's more like an app, so you just, subscribe and you have your monthly thing going, right? And you can just use the app freely. But Preply is conversation classes, it's grammar, it's all the things. So both of my children did a lot of training in Portuguese, but for my oldest, it didn't really click all the way. Like she got it, but it was like taking longer, even though she had that background of picking up language when she was younger. So, and then that was a lot of it was because she didn't socialize as much. So, socializing is just so major. And it's funny because even though that wasn't the smoothest thing for my kids, and children are so naturally social, they still love Brazil. Like they want to try again. They want to, get back out there and keep learning the language and try again in Brazil. You know what I mean?
Cool.
So,
The second
yeah,
site you said was Preply, right?
Preply, yes.
Okay, Preply.
That's a
And
good one. You can find all kinds of teachers from all over Brazil, good prices.
Duolingo is always helpful.
Duolingo is
Mhm.
good. And then
Yes.
Mondly is an app that we use.
Yeah, Mondly and Brother Watif used to talk a lot about Pimsleur. I think it's called Pimsleur or something like that.
Pimsleur. Ah, he did
Yeah.
like Pimsleur. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yes. So all these things kind of help you. I mean, when it comes to Brazil, at least, I don't, I can't speak for other countries. It's such a huge country, guys, and there's so many regional dialects and accents that
Mm-hmm.
you're really only going to learn Portuguese when you get to Brazil. And especially also because similar to English, although it's changed in the last, maybe 6, 7 years or so. Usually, British English is the standard English that's going to be taught, when you read books. So I learned what a lorry was. I didn't know what a lorry was until I
Oh,
started
Lori.
teaching. Until I started teaching English in Brazil,
Oh,
a lorry and a lift and the loo, these
oh,
things like that
no.
and
And a
chow.
Q.
a Q, you know. Now it's
Right.
changed a little bit. I think there's a lot more English material that's American English based. I guess Americans kind of took over that market a little bit. But you got to
Yeah.
be aware that if you're learning Portuguese, you're probably going to get Portuguese from Portugal, which is very different than
Right.
Portuguese from Brazil. I mean,
Yeah.
writing wise, it's more or less the same, but accent, it's sort of like if you want to
Totally
compare it, British English to American English, like it sounds
different.
more
Mhm.
proper. And then you get to Brazil and you're like, what the hell are these people
What was that?
talking about?
Well,
And
all of
then,
these sites they
yes.
specify
Oh,
Brazilian
good.
or Portuguese. Yeah,
Okay, yes. So make
always
sure
specify.
you are studying Brazilian Portuguese because I've had friends
Oh
who've
yeah.
studied Portuguese from
No.
Portugal and they come down here and they're completely lost. They're like, what the heck?
Sounds
Because it's a
totally different.
very different language. It's very
Mm-hmm.
loose, a lot of slang, a lot of
Oosh.
regional dialects. And even me, who
Mhm.
I was born in Brazil, I grew up in a household where we spoke only Portuguese. When I came down
Oh,
here, I was lost. I was like, like I could understand
yeah.
most of it, but my brain hurt for like the first month. And then
Mm-hmm.
when I started meeting people from Bahia, from Minas Gerais, from Sergipe, from Piauí, and I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
what are they saying? What
Ooh.
are they? I would just kind of nod and like, yeah,
Or
yeah,
what are
yeah.
they singing? They sound like they're singing sometimes.
Yes, they sound like they're singing to you. Yes, it's beautiful. I
Yes,
love those
it's
accents,
beautiful.
but
I love it.
they are no joke. Oh, hello, Mr. Tahuna Anderson. How similar is Spanish and
Uh-huh.
Portuguese?
Hmm. There's
How
a
similar is
lot of
that?
grammatical similarities, I would say, but when you get into spoken, it's a completely different. It's a different cadence, a different energy. Everything about it is different.
See,
About those
people,
two languages.
Imara, people are showing up now because I made that mistake putting the thing at 10:40. So people are coming in. So thank you all for
Wait.
coming in. We started at
Yeah.
10. I made a mistake with the premiere time and put it for 10:40.
Oh. Oh, did you?
Yes. So
I didn't know that.
I
Okay.
didn't
Well, we're
notice
here.
it until I just started, and like the thing up top was like 10:40. But
Ouch.
anyway, so thank you
Yeah.
all for coming in. And if you got questions, you can feel free to ask. And I'm with Amara. Spanish and Portuguese are very similar. They're similar enough that if you can't speak Portuguese and you speak Spanish slowly, most Brazilians will understand you. They call it
Mhm.
portunhol. It's like Spanglish, you know? Like, for example, como vai or como está, no, como estás, it's very similar. Eu moro, how do you say eu moro in São Paulo in Spanish?
Yo vivo en São Paulo.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
in vivo, even though we don't use
Vivo,
the verb
totally different.
vivo in Portuguese, but vivo people would understand because vivo means viver, which means live.
Yeah.
Eu gosto de capoeira
Mm-hmm.
in Spanish. How would that be?
Oh, me gusta capoeira.
Yes,
Mm-hmm. Me
it's
gusta.
very similar,
Uh-huh.
very similar.
Yes.
So, as a starter, just to get around, you can start with Spanish, but it'd be
Sure.
cool if you transition into Portuguese because there's definitely differences. And, the deeper you get into the language, you'll notice that the pronunciation, the syllables, the cadence of the language
Yes.
is very
Totally
different.
different.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I
And
first
then
came oh, sorry. When I
go
first
ahead.
moved to Salvador back when I was a younger woman, I was doing my portuñol thing. You know what I mean? But I
Mhm.
did notice people will even get lightweight offended about it. The
I've seen
Brazilians
that
are very
too.
proud.
I have
So,
seen that
don't
too.
be speaking no other stuff to them really. They're not gonna be super crazy about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
guys, there is that. Like Brazil has a little bit of this thing with like we're the country that speaks Portuguese, and they get a little offended if you
Yeah.
one call them Hispanic because it's not there, it's not Hispanic. And two,
No.
if you start speaking Spanish or if you say, "Oh, you speak Spanish," they're like, "No, we
No,
speak Portuguese." They're very proud
not.
of that fact. So you can, which I agree with. I mean, that's their culture. It's
Absolutely.
the culture here. So it's like I don't get offended when French people want you to speak French in their country. Like
Of
that's their
course.
fucking country. It's their language. Why not? Wouldn't you? So yeah, learn some Portuguese
Of
so
course.
you don't get into any of these situations. And then
Big deal in Brazil.
yes, and
Yeah.
then we got J Hall. Hey, sir.
Okay, Hall.
There are a lot of black expats in Brazil. Uh,
Mm.
yes, baby.
Woo.
A lot. A lot.
Mm. Mm.
Yes. And in
Yeah.
case you want to join, because one of the tips I saw on Imara's page is join a lot of local expat groups.
Mm,
There's the Black Expat Network, that you can join, which is a WhatsApp group, and I can connect you with that. But I'll connect you with that if you join the Facebook group, which is, I forgot the name. It's Black Expats in
the black
Brazil, right?
expats in Brazil. Yeah.
Yes, which
Mhm.
is the page that Brother Watif started a long, long time ago. Here, I'll share the page here so you guys can join. Yeah, I'm not gonna put the link for the WhatsApp page here because I don't want a lot of people in there that shouldn't be in there. But if you
Mhm.
join the Facebook page, I'm one of the folks in there, and a lot of people ask me, "Oh, there's Amara right there." A lot of people ask me about the can I get the link for the WhatsApp group, and then I can send it to you. But it's a pretty active page, and there's
Mhm.
people mostly Salvador, Rio, and Sao Paulo. Those are the three main locations for a lot of Black expats. But we're all over. We're down in Curitiba, we're in Minas
Oi,
Gerais. We are everywhere. Oh, there's Ace and making
ideia,
our video
uma
there that we
ideia.
did. Guys, get it if you get a chance. Check this video out. You're gonna love it. I'll link it in the comments. But
Yes.
J
Listen,
Ho, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. J Ho.
J-Ho.
I'll tell you, Brazil. You know, more than 50% of the population does not identify as white, which is different than identifying as black. But we're not going to get into that because that's a complex
That's
topic.
complex.
Race
Hmm.
identity in Brazil is a complex issue. You cannot get your American mindset and place it into Brazil. Totally different histories as far as black history, etc. That said, more than 50%, which was kind of historic because it wasn't always like that. It's something that happened in my time here. It wasn't even like that, when I first
Mm.
moved to Brazil. That more than 50% identify as non black. Um,
Mm.
Bahia, which we were talking about, is the hub for black culture. Sad to say, but
Mhm.
roughly 4 to 5 million blacks Africans were brought here to be enslaved. So it's many more black folks than in the U.S. And the silver lining of that, I don't want to say the good part of that because it was horrible, but the silver lining of that is that Black Brazilians managed to maintain a bit more of their African roots than blacks in America. So that, like Amara was saying in the beginning, how she was getting into candomblé. We also have umbanda, which is a little bit more
Mixed,
Brazilianized
mixed up.
version of it. So
Mhm.
it kind of goes away a little bit from the original African faiths, but that's
Mhm.
still very vibrant. The food, you can get some dishes in Bahia that are like almost 90% the same as what you would get, from
Nigeria.
their countries
Mhm.
of origin. So the black culture here is not only big, it's just a part. It's the lining of Brazilian culture. It's a very strong
Mhm.
part of Brazilian culture. So yes, yes. Let me see. J Hole says, "I am a she. I'm so sorry." Okay. And Ace's video is how I found you. Also guiding for. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you
Hey,
very much. Thank you for watching that. And
awesome
big up to
videos.
Ace because that was a beautiful video. And Sao
Mhm.
Paulo is a city that a lot of people don't identify as a black city, and it's a very black city. It's a metropolitan city, so there's everybody here. But me and Amara, we can attest to the black culture here being
Woo.
it is deep down here.
Listen, it's a vibe down there.
It's
What?
thick. It's thick. It's thick. So
Yes.
so please, Jay, if you're down, reach out. Like on the video, Ace
Mhm.
gave my Instagram, but that's how you can reach me a little bit easier. Phil Ray Music, and we can reach out. And then we got another comment here from Tahoon. He said, "I heard the company I work for is out there. IQOR. How difficult to get a working visa from there?" Well, maybe Amara, you could speak on that. Working visa, how's that work for you?
I didn't because I usually am doing things via the internet, so I've never had to apply for a visa in Brazil.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I can't really speak on it. But if the company is willing to support you on that, because obviously they have to sponsor you,
Yes.
then that's an option. Yeah. But the challenge is, are you going to be getting paid according to whatever your salary is in the States? Are you going to be getting paid Brazilian? It might not work for you, just contingent upon how they're doing the payment. So in terms of the amounts that they're paying,
Yeah.
currency wise and all of that. So it just depends on that company. Mm-hmm.
So, Tahoon, I agree with what Imara said. If it's a company that's, from your home country that's located here, get in touch with the HR of that in the States and see if there's,
Mm-hmm.
see all about that. Salary, are you earning in dollars or reais? That's going to make a big difference as far as how
Listen,
expensive this country is. Uh,
listen.
yes. And they'll sponsor you. Do not try to come down here and get a job and get a
No.
working visa. It's very difficult for foreigners. You're not gonna earn that much. People that do work here are mostly in education, like myself. So I have a decent salary. I work at a private school. Those jobs are a little bit easier to get into because of your English. But if you're thinking I'm gonna come to Brazil and get an IT job or something like that, I
No.
don't recommend it. I don't recommend it at all. Talk to your company and see if they have an opportunity for you to come down here and then get set up that way with your work visa.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great advice. Yeah.
Canal bem detalhado, the books, Ender Tabor. I'm not sure I understand your comment, but thank you for dropping by. Canal bem detalhado. If you can explain that comment a little bit better, maybe we can answer you. And yeah, we got another teacher in the house. Woohoo! We love our teachers. Yes.
I used to teach in Salvador, so that was my first thing I did in Brazil years ago. Teaching. Mm-hmm.
Now, Mr. What do you call it? Jay, I actually have a video on the channel. I'll link it somewhere where I talked to Kay, who's an Afro Canadian woman
Mm,
who was a teacher down here for a while, and she talks about how to get into teaching English down here in Brazil. Really cool interview we did with her. It's way back. By the way, guys, there's a playlist, Brazil Expat Journal playlist, and you'll find this is episode 49. We're almost at 50, so
ah.
you can just go. She was around episode 12
Mhm,
to 20, somewhere in there, but I'll try to link it in the comments for you so you can watch that. But that's what it is.
mhm.
Canal bem detalhado. I have no clue what you're saying, brother. So you're gonna talk to yourself for a while. I don't want to say speak English, but speak English.
Yeah, maybe not.
Anyway, um, getting back, guys. Traveling with kids. Can you give us biggest challenge and greatest satisfaction?
Mm. Yeah. So for sure, the biggest challenges that I've encountered with traveling with my two children would definitely be number one is definitely uh so it's social. It's definitely social, because it's very hard to see your children being uncomfortable, like in the times when we have traveled and they might not have fallen in love with the place, or they might not have clicked in with children or people. You feel bad about that as a parent, that you've decided to move them across the globe or wherever you've moved them to, and they are not taking to the place, right? So that has been my biggest challenge, is that I'm not going to say I had regrets, because every challenge experience has been so expansive for them. It's broadened their horizons, their minds, everything. But that can be really hard sometimes, when you're like, oh, I just want to get them out there. I want to get them mainstream. I want them to like be normal children, and like they're locked out, mostly usually because of language, and just culture. And how do I make them feel like they can integrate and feel comfortable here? So that's been some of the bigger challenges that I've had traveling with children. And the biggest successes, or would you say just the joy of it, has been seeing how much they have been able to flex. My children have been able to flex and absorb and take in and connect with other people in a very much a global citizen type of way. They're very open minded. They're not judgmental. They're much better people than like even myself. Like they're way better than me. They're not judgmental. They accept people. They're loving. They're kind, open, and truly global. because they've always kind of lived outside of their own cultures that they were initially born into, and you know what I mean. So they've had to be very flexible, and that has brought me a lot of joy. I feel like they can take that into their lives, and it can really be impactful for them, you know, as adults.
Cool, cool, cool. Well, I
So
love
open.
how you're very real about it, which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Because I don't. Sometimes people, I don't know. That's just the impression I get. It's very. There's like this polarity where people either think, okay, living outside the U.S. or wherever your first world country is of choice,
Mhm.
it's like hell. And it's impossible, and it's like you got to deal with crime, you got to deal with this, and it's like, guys, not really. It's pretty chill. It's pretty laid back. You got to,
You can do
But on the other side of that are people that are like, it's paradise, and we're
it.
gonna be on the beach sipping caipirinhas all day, and it's like,
Mhm.
yeah, when you come for carnival, maybe, or you come for
Yeah.
Festa Junina, or you spend like I did, like a week and a half in Salvador and did everything
Everything.
legally allowed. As long as it was legal, man, I was doing it.
You're
Man.
in it. Come
I was in
on.
it. And it's like, but the reality is that it's not. It's like actually living your life, and it's difficult, and there's bureaucracy, and there's
Mhm.
language barriers, and there's stuff
Absolutely.
that you're like, what
Hard.
the hell, why can't you do this now when I called you a
Mhm.
week ago, you know so that's the reality, is that it's not a cakewalk, but it's so gratifying when you
Mhm.
get over that hump, and you're in a country as welcoming and as beautiful and as
Oh,
magical. And we use these words, it's not flippantly. There's
no,
some
not
magic
at
in this
all.
motherfucker. It's like even Brazilians.
Listen.
Look, even Brazilians, when they talk
Listen.
about Salvador, they call it o universo paralelo, the parallel
A
universe. That's the
parallel
nickname.
universe.
That's the nickname Brazilians have for Bahia.
Come
And
on.
it is.
Brazil
I
is
was like,
that to me. I'm like, shit.
yes,
Get
I'm
me
like, what
back.
is this place?
This place is
Now,
crazy. Yeah.
Jay did ask, how is crime in São Paulo? I only really heard about the favelas.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll say something and let Imara say something from a woman's perspective and like
Mm-hmm.
with kids.
All right.
Because that's something that you got to think about, okay? As much as I love Brother Watif, he would always talk about, oh, it's safe, it's safe, it's safe. But look at how big you are, brother. And I told him to his face, I'm not talking behind his back. Rest in peace, Brother Watif. It's like,
Yes.
look at you. Nobody's going to fuck with you. The guy was like built like, just
He was
all
a big
muscle.
guy. Big,
Yes. So nobody's
strong
gonna
guy.
mess with you, more or less. I'm a smaller
Mhm.
dude. I gotta kind of watch my P's and Q's. I got, I'm looking around. I gotta see, like, I know how to walk in a city, so that helps a lot. You gotta be street smart, but it's overblown. I'll tell you that right now. The crime in Brazil is overblown. Is it high? Yes, but it's in a lot of regions, okay, especially in some
Mhm.
places in the Northeast that are extremely gang run. There's warring factions. In Sao Paulo, can shit happen to you? Yes, it can.
Mhm. Mhm.
But can you avoid it 99% of the time by just being smart and not going down that alleyway when you shouldn't be, or not
Mhm.
just, somebody calls you up, let's go to a party, and you go by yourself and you end up in some part of town that you don't know nowhere. Yeah, then you're setting yourself up for trouble. But it at least São Paulo. I can't speak for other areas of Brazil. It's such a huge city, Jay, that it's very defined where the dangerous areas are and where the safe areas are.
Mhm.
And you spoke about the favelas. It's actually, the favela is probably the safest place to be, because nobody's gonna mess with you in the favela. If they do, the
Mhm.
gangs in there are gonna fuck you up. So if somebody robs you in the favela, that's their hand. Like it's like going like Sharia law style. Like they cut off hands. Um, I shouldn't admit to this, but I've been. It's so weird down here. They have a lot of WhatsApp groups, like family groups. And man, I used to be
Mhm.
in this group that a friend of mine put me in for like people in the neighborhood of Butantan. And sometimes it would show some videos in there. That's why I left the group, where it would be like them showing like gang members like doing some nasty shit to
It's
people that
memory.
did some, like,
Mhm.
either stole or they raped, and I was like, man, I mean, in a way I'm like glad, but in the other way I'm like, I don't need to see that shit. So like
Yeah.
I just remove myself from it. So the favelas, I had a friend of mine from England. who used to live in Paraisópolis. Paraisópolis is the biggest favela in São Paulo, one of the biggest ones in Brazil. I'll show you a picture of it here. Paraisópolis, São Paulo. And I've been in there a bunch of
Yes.
times. Oh, and I love this picture. This picture shows the a perfect depiction of the economic divide. So what happens if you're
Mm-hmm.
inside Paraisópolis? You're fine. It's nothing gonna happen to you in there. And if it does, it's rare, and the boys will show up. And I'm not talking about the police. Now, if you're outside, because outside Paraisópolis, it's one of the richest neighborhoods of São Paulo. It's called Morumbi. And there's another great picture to show the contrast. You know, they're right next to each other. And my friend would say, I would be afraid up here with these where these buildings are, because that's the people with money. A lot of the crime in Brazil is driven by economics. And it makes
Yeah.
it a little bit easier to avoid because you can kind of you can understand where it's coming from. This is not I'm not apologizing for crime, but I know when I lived in Philadelphia, I just couldn't walk down certain streets because it's territorial, and people would just want to beat me up or take my sneakers or whatever, because why are you
Mhm.
in my neighborhood? I don't see that much in São Paulo unless you're like affiliated with gangs or something. Here, it's because you got an iPhone and somebody wants that iPhone so that they can go buy drugs or do whatever they want. So, if you're in the favela, you're pretty much like showing that you're of the same socioeconomic status, so people aren't going to rob you as much. If
Mhm.
you're living in a rich neighborhood, the bandits are going to say, "Oh, she's got money, she's got a car, she's got whatever." Then we're going to try to rob you. So, oh, Chicago, yes. So you totally
Mm.
get it. Yes.
Woo.
So it's a little bit different how crime works down here. Again,
Mhm.
it's not. I'm not being an apologist for crime, because I wish all these guys would just be put in jail. You know, but um, it's sort of avoidable depending on how you dress, how you look. I think black people have a little bit easier time with crime because we are seen as being poor down here, just because based on how the social class order is. And if you're a man, you have a little bit, it can be tricky as a man, because, men sometimes are going to try to kind of confront other men, which can be complicated. But I'm going to segue right into Imara in her experiences as a woman in crime. And how is that for you?
Yeah, so I mean, crime in Sao Paulo, I never saw any and I never experienced any. But I will say at night, especially going if you were going downtown for an event or going to like República, I did have some moments in República, like where I was like, yo, this is some sketchy stuff at night. So
Mm-hmm.
you need to definitely know how to maneuver in Sao Paulo, like any other part of Brazil. The only place in Brazil this last, almost year and a half that year and a half that we were there, more than year and a half. The only place that I had any issues was in Rio, and that was because my phone got swiped.
I
Out of
remember
my
that.
in broad daylight, broad walking, standing on a street corner with my kids. I think I accidentally said something in English and no more phone. It was like 5 seconds later.
Man, and those.
So yeah, ain't no joke. In Rio, what? So República, that was the only place where I ever felt. But other than that, I lived in Villa Magdalena, so it was chill. But obviously, when you're in those more kind of a little bit more wealthy neighborhoods or whatever, you need to be on your P's and Q's because people are definitely like, for me, because I'm brown, if I'm not speaking, they think I'm probably there to clean or go clean in somebody's apartment or something like that. You know what I mean? As long as I'm not talking, I can pretty
Mm-hmm.
much move. So, but in certain neighborhoods of Sao Paulo, you just have to be aware. Mm-hmm.
There's República right there. And I'll tell you this though, Amara. I had quit going downtown about 5 or 6 years ago, and it's way
Mm-hmm.
nicer now. There's a lot more police. There's like the spot that we opened
Mm.
downtown. It's safe as anything. Like like I
Yes,
just stopped. Like I wouldn't go downtown even during the daytime. About
I
five
saw
or
that
six
on the
years.
Ace that you were
Yeah.
telling him about how
Oh, I
downtown
quit
is.
downtown, and I love downtown São Paulo. I just quit on it. It was just way too dangerous, way too many
Mm-hmm.
crackheads,
Sketchy.
muggers. and it's really turned around. I mean, not every part of it. So that's the thing. Like I was just saying, like I know exactly where to stop walking. And you just know after this block, it's even like Ace and he didn't show this in the video, but when I met him the first night on a Monday night, we went drinking near Republica, and around 10 o'clock, we took a walk downtown, and we went from around the end of Consolação all the way to Vale do
Mm,
Anhangabaú. And then as
mm-hmm.
soon as we got to the valley, we like crossed the other side, and I said, man, we got to stop here. Because then once you start getting to Praça da Sé, then it's
Right.
going to start getting sketchy. It was already starting to get sketchy, but and it was around 10:30, 11, and we were like, and then we doubled back. But I wouldn't even have made that walk, 5, 6 years
Right.
ago. So it's gotten a little bit better. So
Yeah,
you
that's
you
good.
can't. And another thing too, Jay, and anybody else that's listening with crime, a lot of it is like pickpocketing. A lot of it is, maybe you have your phone out, you're looking at something, waiting for your Uber, and you're holding it like this, and the kids run by with the
Mm-hmm.
bikes. They're fast. You don't see it coming.
Gone.
But it's not like you're not gonna see, or you rarely see, even downtown in República, like people shot down on the street. It's not crime like that. Nobody's gonna
Mm-mm.
shoot at you in Copacabana, or Ipanema while you're
No.
drinking some caipirinhas. They may run up on you. There's a lot of arrastão that they call it. It's like 10 people come at
Mm-hmm.
once, and you just take all the phones and run off.
Mm-hmm.
But people are not dying in mass. So when you think of crime, you got to think there's a lot of pickpocketing. There's, yes, people will pull out a knife on you. I had a knife
Mm-hmm.
pulled out on me once. I've never had a gun pulled on me. I did have a couple kids that tried to just, it was like five of them. They surrounded me and tried to take my shit, and I just like fought back. Uh, but they didn't have weapons. That's the only reason I did it. And they lived in the favela really close to my house that I know very well. I'm in and out. So it was funny. I yelled at them like they were my kids. I was like, I probably know your moms. Da, da, da. I'm in and out
Oh,
of
my
this favela all the time. You're gonna steal from me. And then like one of the older boys was like, no, leave him alone, leave him alone. And they
yeah.
gave me back my shit. But it's a lot of this. It's social, economic, um,
Mhm.
driven crime. Yes, she said it's not like no. It, certain
Mm-mm.
places, yes, it is like City of God, especially
Right.
Rio. I think for me,
Unreal.
I think Rio was more violent than São Paulo, but people from Rio feel the opposite. I just know I was there
Oh,
for 4 days, and I saw more crime than I had in like 8 years in
my
São Paulo.
God. Wow.
And again, when I say crime, pickpocketing, I even my brother-in-law, he was walking, and this kid tried to pull his chain. He forgot to take off his gold chain.
Hmm. Now,
Uh,
Rio would be sketchy. I'm
yeah,
walking around Copacabana at night. You be like, really
it is,
watching.
man.
It's
Look,
sketch.
I
It's
always say, Imara, two places that I've been like the most scared for my life is Southwest Philadelphia.
oh shit, not
No,
Philly.
Southwest
Crazy.
Philadelphia is fucked up, man.
Listen,
And downtown Rio de Janeiro, like Centro,
tell
not
you.
like Ipanema, but Centro de Rio, man. Like at night,
Yeah, I
I
know what
mean,
you're
these
talking
pictures
about.
make it look nice. These pictures make it look nice, but it's
Mm,
more like this.
cute.
It's more like walking down streets like this, and there's just these kind of zombie folks
Sketch, the sketch,
walking
the
up and down.
zombies.
And I was like,
And they're clocking you. Everybody's clocking you. Like
yes,
everyone's
I did
clocking
not
you
enjoy
in
it.
Rio. You be so
I
uptight.
did
For me, I can't be there a lot because I would be too uptight. I wouldn't want to be moving like that all the time.
no, yeah. I
Hmm.
was in this neighborhood, São Cristóvão, and then I had to go near the airport because I was gonna watch a show at the Vivo, and I was like, ah, let me just take the bus because that's what I do whenever I travel. I travel like in like the locals.
Like the
And
local.
then you're walking down the street. I was like, what the? It was like 5 blocks that we have to walk. And man, I was booking. I was like, we ain't
Zona Sul.
stopping. We ain't
Mm-mm.
stopping. We are booking out of
We're
here.
out.
Yeah, it's very, very shady.
It's sketchy
But
then.
downtown São Paulo can be a little bit like that.
You
Look, this is
can,
St.
especially at night. Hmm.
Yes.
Especially.
I thought I was showing the pictures, but there they are right there, guys. So that's the
I
center
know you
of
sent it.
Rio
Mhm.
at night.
Woo,
Yeah.
honey.
It is a little sketchy. And then Centro de São Paulo, Centro de São Paulo. Centro means center, guys. So
Mm-hmm.
centro of São Paulo at night. I mean, these pictures make it look nice, but it's a little bit like this depending on where you go. Look at this. This is more the reality. These are
Just
not
gotta be hyper
Photoshop
aware.
pictures, but
Yeah.
not everywhere. Like this area actually looks very similar to what it looked. Well, it was in the video, so watch the nightlight video with Ace, and you'll see that it's basically like
Yes.
that. But when you get past this shopping mall a little bit further to Praça da Sé, man, uh, Praça da Sé
Church.
is a complicated place. It's that
Yeah, the
center
big
right there.
church. Mm.
The big church. There's a lot of homeless
Mm-hmm.
folks, a lot of people,
It's
a
super
lot of
close to
drug
Liberdade.
addicts.
Mm-hmm.
Look at that. Look at
Yeah.
all the people, homeless people sleeping on the street there.
Uh,
And that's sad to see, but it's just
yeah.
a reality of here. But you kind of, that's what I was saying at the beginning when Jay asked the question, how dangerous is it? Once you've been here long enough, you kind of know. That's what I like about Sao Paulo, which is different than Rio, because Rio, like the rich area and the poor area are like, they're just right next to each other.
Yeah.
So the crime seems to happen anywhere at any time. In Sao Paulo is so big, like if you rob somebody on Avenida Paulista, which is one of the main strips here, where the hell are you going to run to? You
Right.
can't. So a lot of crime does not happen on Avenida Paulista. Like, can
Mm-hmm.
it happen? Of course. But look at this
Sure.
place. Like, where are you going to run to? Like, the closest favela is 40 minutes away, you know? So, like, where I live, it's kind of a middle class neighborhood, but there's some areas here that are a little bit more upper class. They get robbed a lot. Why? Because it's
Mm-hmm.
close to the favela. Like I live about 10 minutes walking to a favela, which is Jardim Jaqueline. Big ups to Jardim Jaqueline because that's like my second home.
Mm-hmm.
But it's right there, and the buildings are right next to it, and it's a quick getaway. That's usually what's happening with crime here. Is
Mm.
a lot of people on motorcycles. So, yeah, I live on this main avenue here. So you have the favela here. So a lot, if there's crime happening here, phew, they can sneak into the favelas and just disappear. You know, so there's a little bit of
Mm-hmm.
that going on, guys.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, by the way, everybody that's what do you call it, chiming in.
Coming in.
Philly is the jungle. This
Yeah,
is
man.
true.
Thanks, guys.
How is
How is
Bahia? Well, it's a parallel universe. Listen to the
Yes, it
beginning of
is.
the podcast later, Jay. We were talking about Bahia. Bahia is marvelous. I didn't
Oh,
want to leave.
special. So special.
Not want to leave. In
Mm-hmm.
Mississippi, I can leave my door open. Nothing will happen. Let me tell you something, Tahun. One thing that I love about Sao Paulo, but I'm sure other parts of Brazil are like this, are a lot of the cities in the interior. They're like that. They're very safe. There's a city that I've been romancing. Like I want to actually retire there, called Iguape in Sao Paulo, and it's a gorgeous. Look at this little city. It's so cute.
Oh, man.
480-year-old city. Man, I was walking around
Gorgeous.
at night with my phone. Nothing's gonna happen to
Mm-hmm.
you. Everybody kind of knows each other. It's so cute, and it's next to a beach town. And every time that I go to a new town, I always talk to the locals. I ask how safe it is, like because I would see people ride their bikes a lot, and they just leave their bikes unchained. And I'm like, is that okay? And they're like, yeah, no, like nobody's gonna steal your bike, man.
Wow.
And actually, I met somebody there that lent me their bikes for the time I was there. I was there for like a week, and I was like just riding somebody else's bike. And it's next to this Ilha Comprida, which is this really cute
See that.
beach town. I fell in love with this place, and you can do that. You can leave your
Mm-hmm.
door open. Nobody's gonna do anything. Where I live, I actually leave my door open because of my dog, but I got a gate up in the front. But so not every place. The violence gets overblown, folks. Remember, the media. If it bleeds, it leads. So even if you go into, some Jay was saying she's from Chicago. I remember when Philly was like one of the most dangerous cities in America, and Camden
Mm-hmm.
and all that. Well, Camden, yes,
Camden.
but
Woo.
but you can walk. It didn't mean you couldn't go to Philly have a nice cheesesteak, walk around South Street, you're not gonna get killed. A lot of this crime that people talk about is in the inner city. It's like there's spots for it, you know? Like you can still go to Chicago as a tourist, go to a great blues bar, do all the things that you want to do in Chicago that are amazing because I love Chicago. And
Mhm.
you're not gonna get shot in front of the Sears building. So you gotta always keep that into perspective. That a lot of times the media is just gonna feed you the negative, and it'll psych you out of doing things. This happened to me when I first came to Brazil. I moved from a neighborhood called Moema into the neighborhood I'm in now. And in that in between time, I had like a week that I just stayed home, just, fixing shit up. And I was watching a lot of TV, and there's these shows that come on around 5 or 6. They're like these police reporter shows, and they just talk about all the crime that's happening. It's very sensationalist. If anybody's watched the movie, The Elite Squad, one of the characters in that movie, Tropa do Elite, is a character like that. He's on TV talking about, and today, 5 bandits went into a bank, and did this, and tomorrow there was this, and I watched that shit for a week, and I didn't want to leave my house. I was literally trembling. I'm not joking. Like I was trembling. Man, the minute I turned that off and I just decided to live my life, it changed. And I realized I'm not going to get shot the minute I walk out my house in Sao Paulo. Does crime happen? Yes. Can it happen? Yes. But it's like a lottery, guys. It's 20 million people. It's 20 million people here. And how much crime do they have per year in Sao Paulo? Kidding me, Sao Paulo. Let me see. It will seem like a big number, but actually crime's been going down. It says here in 2020, 2023, the states, okay, registered 3,615 attempted homicides, okay, which seems like a lot, but then it's like that's the state of Sao Paulo, which has about 40 million people. So it's like it's kind of like hitting the lottery for stuff like
Tell
that
me
to
about it.
happen, you
Mhm.
know?
Mhm.
Crime em cidade de São Paulo. Let me see. Na cidade, there was actually a reduction of 14% from 2022.
Wow.
There were 481 homicides in a city of 20 million. So do the math. You know, uh,
Mm.
does it mean you got to be careful? You got to watch yourself, but you got to also live your life and realize you're not
Mhm.
going to leaving your house. Okay. Also, look, it says theft has fallen. Okay, so the
Wow.
car thefts uh, have their lowest rates in the last 24 years. Okay, 29% in the state. And so, yeah, crime's actually been going down, but it's you can't get sucked into the sensationalist part of it all. Uh, Imara, we are busy here. Oh, what
I
happened to you?
am
There you are.
here.
Homelessness is a problem in every city these days, even here. We are dealing with
Mhm.
a migrant crisis here in Chicago. Yeah, that is sad. This is true. This is
Interesting. Yeah.
true. That looks like the villages, like in Florida. Man, it's a cute
Mm.
place. Once you start being a more seasoned expat like Amara and I are, and you start
Mhm.
exploring outside the tourist hubs, that's when
So
you really
nice.
fall in love. That's when you're like,
So
ooh,
nice.
yes. You travel an hour outside of São Paulo City, out of Rio,
Mhm.
out of Salvador. I mean, it's amazing in
That's
Salvador, and
it.
then
Yeah.
you go an hour up north, an hour down south, out west, and you're like, oh my God. And it's safer too.
So amazing.
Yeah, it's
Like
amazing.
I would say that about Itacare. Itacare was it was about 4 or 5 hours out of Salvador, so it was far down south. But on the coast, just rivers and ocean meeting everywhere. So beautiful waterfalls, gorgeous nature, culture, deep Afro Brazilian culture everywhere, arts celebrated everywhere. It was amazing. Hippie culture, so they had a lot of surfers and hippies. It was just like a really cool town. Only like 30,000 people, you know.
Mhm.
So as much as I love Salvador, I end up in a place with 30,000 people in Brazil.
That's what,
Hmm.
but those little towns are the best. The Iguapi is probably about the same. It's probably
They don't.
not much different. Let me see.
Mm-hmm.
População de Iguape. I bet you it's got even less people than Itacaré, but there's so much to do that you
Yeah,
just don't get bored.
I don't know how Brazil does it, but they can pack some stuff in to do in the
Yeah,
smallest.
Iguape, look at that.
Yeah.
Iguape has 30,989 people.
Okay.
So it's a little town.
Mm-hmm.
30,989. In Ilha Cumprida,
Beautiful.
which is right next
Freedom.
door, which is literally translates to Long Island, 11,000
Mm-hmm.
people. This is from 2020. So it's very small
Yeah,
and
that's tiny.
but wonderful, wonderful, wonderful place to be, guys. It's a lot to explore down here, folks.
A lot.
Um,
A lot.
yeah, how many states have you been to, Amara, down here?
Uh, only four. I think only four states. Yeah, and
So
barely
Rio,
really because
Sao
Bahia.
Paulo.
Not really. I say I got close to Minas, but I can't really say I've spent time in Minas. But so really
I
it's
gotta
been
get there.
only Bahia, Rio, and São Paulo. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, so
So
when you come down, we gotta go to Minas because I have
I
only
want to go to
driven through
Minas.
Minas.
I've been close, but yeah.
Yeah, I feel like Minas is a place that if I go, it'll be like Salvador. Like I just won't come back. I'm like,
Oh my
I'm here.
God, people
I'm
love
staying here.
Minas.
Yes,
I
the
have a friend
food.
getting ready to take off from here to Minas in a couple of weeks. I'm like, oh man,
Mm-mm.
take me with you.
Yes, guys. Those of you watching, seeing me and Imara drool. Once you come down here, you'll understand why we're drooling the way that we are. Uh-oh, Imara froze a little bit. Because it's an amazing country, very amazing country. Imara's internet kind of froze a little bit. But guys that are here, thank you so much for all the love that you've been given based on those videos that Ace put out. And yes, I think somebody here asked me if I do consulting, and I mostly do, I do the tours, but I can help you as far as getting set up if you want to have a longer stay. And I'm actually writing a book. It's coming out. I've actually finished the book. I'm just in the editing process where I break all of this stuff down, and I even give a few personal experiences, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because one thing that I think is important, and what I like to do on this podcast is not sugarcoat. So, if you go into some past episodes, you're going to see some nasty stuff. There's one series that we did, which was the 10 things we love about Brazil and the 10 things that we hate about Brazil. So check out the playlist, the Brazil Expat playlist, and you'll see that I don't like to sugarcoat. As much as I love living here, there's some stuff that definitely will drive you nuts. So if anybody's got questions, we're just going to wait for Imara to come back, and then we're going to try to wrap up the interview with her. Go back to the beginning. I had made a mistake as far as the premiere time. We started at 10 p.m., but the premiere was set for 10:40. So I saw that most y'all came in right around that time, so I apologize. But listen to the beginning of the interview because she gives a lot of great tips, especially if you're traveling with young kids. If you're a single parent, she's a single mom, or if you want to travel with your family, there's definitely different things that you want to consider when you are coming down here. So if anybody's got questions, you are free to ask them while we wait for Imara to come back. But basically, that's the topic for tonight: traveling with kids, getting set up in this country. And or even on a personal note, guys, because people ask me a lot, would I ever move back to the States? I don't see myself ever going back to the States to live. I would visit. And given like the the scenario right now, the geopolitical scenario, I don't think I'd want to be in the States. Like people are threatening nuclear war from one side to the other. I think there was a Republican senator that was talking about how we should just take care of all these crises fast, do it like Nagasaki and in Hiroshima. We're like, what the hell are you talking about? So I want to be down here. I want to be as far away from that mess as possible. Yes, are there things that are grating down here that are complicated down here? Yes, but it's a mess. Let me see here. Imara saying her ghetto island electrical outage. So they had a little bit of electrical outage. The States is a horror show now. Some really weird stuff going on here. Yeah, I was talking a little bit earlier about Brother Watif, who used to do a lot of YouTube lives and give a lot of good advice to expats. And his thing was that was like survivalist stuff. And it's like Brazil is a really great place if you just want to survive a nuclear war. It's so terrible to say, but that's the reality of today. Um, and there was used to be a guy I listened to back in the day called Art Bell. He was a late night talk show host. And I've been searching for this interview for so long because I know I heard it back in the day with this guy who's a survivalist, survival expert. And he mentioned Brazil. Actually, he lived in Brazil and he talked about how Brazil is a really good place to be if shit hits the fan. There's a lot of terrain. There's a lot of these small towns when you can be off the grid, where you can farm, grow your own food and just get the hell out of Dodge, which is kind of what I'm planning. I'm in Sao Paulo now. I love the hell out of Sao Paulo, but I hope to, maybe in 5, possibly 10 years, move to that little town that I showed there in Iguape. It's a lot going on here. Don't blame you. Yeah, guys, a lot going on. I really don't want Trump to be president ever again. His rhetoric makes people do stupid things. Uh, oh, she's trying a hotspot to get back on, guys, and then we'll finish the interview. Yeah, well, I wish I could say it was just Trump, Taehoon, because it seems like it's everybody. I mean, you know, uh, the Democrats are supposed to be the peace and love folks, and we're in more world conflicts now than we were 4 years ago. So it's a mess. It's a total mess. It's a lot of warmongering from both sides of the aisle, and it seems like they really don't care, and they don't, because if God forbid there was some real horrible nuclear war, all these folks are going to be in underground bunkers. They're just gonna wait it out, and we're the ones that are gonna get fucked. So I don't think they really care. It's just insanity. Like, that's so much power for one person or one country to have. Do I have to be vaccinated to come down? Usually, yellow fever. Yes, they do ask you to do a yellow fever vaccine. Not sure how the COVID situation is now. If you need to be vaccinated for COVID to come down, but if you do come down, I recommend getting a yellow fever vaccine. If you're into that stuff, I mean, I haven't taken the yellow fever vaccine, but if you're into it, do the yellow fever. I believe there a vaccine for dengue. Let me see. I'm gonna look it up right now. Unvaccinated travelers 60 years or older need to get dengue. Okay, is very common here. Actually, we're having a big dengue crisis at the moment, so be careful with that. Oroposh fever, that's in the Amazon or Acre. Travelers to those states, Brazil should take steps to avoid bug bites, vaccines, and medicines. I'm just looking right on this site, guys. It's the CDC government site. Vaccines for diseases. Make sure you're update with all your vaccines. These are normal ones that you take even growing up. Chickenpox, etc. All eligible travelers should be up to date with their COVID-19 vaccines. Okay, so check with that. Check it with your airliner. And then these are just regular vaccines: hepatitis A, B, malaria, measles, which you get just growing up, regardless, rabies, typhoid. But yes, see how it says here, recommended. Okay, yellow fever, I would definitely see about that. And then there's other, you do have to avoid some bug bites. Chagas disease is very difficult to get unless you live in the middle of the woods. A lot of indigenous people get Chagas disease. But dengue is complex. Yeah, in Zika to an extent, but dengue more. I have had a lot of friends who have gotten dengue, and it's not fun. You don't die from it, but it feels like you're gonna die from it. I mean, in some cases, people do die, but it's not a fun disease to have. Oh man, I don't know who this guy is, but he is gonna be banned right now. He's annoying me. Wait up. Oh, I was banned. Okay. It's definitely everybody. Biden is senile and shouldn't be president. I 100% agree. Okay. So, yes, unfortunately, Imara is off. Let me try something crazy. I'm going to try something crazy. Wait up. Let me see if I can do something here. I wonder if it'll work. If I call her, and you guys let me know if you can hear her, if I call her on WhatsApp. So we can just kind of finish the interview together. Let me see here. We're going to try some technology here. Let's see if that works. Because her data, she's on an island right now. Let me see. Hello, Imara. Say something.
Yes, I'm talking. Hello, hello.
Guys, can you hear her? Let me know. We're going to try to finish the interview like this if people can hear you. Let me know, guys, if you can hear her. She's on my WhatsApp right there. There's my beautiful Imara. So,
Guys.
okay, let me see what are people saying. Yes, they can hear you. Okay, so now we're kind of fighting my phone though, because my phone didn't charge well last night. So I got 9% battery. So guys, we're gonna end the interview as we usually do with this music right here. Listen to this. Now that music means we're gonna start the expat challenge. It's a quiz that Imara needs to pass. If she doesn't pass this quiz, guys, when she tries to get back to Brazil, I'm gonna be at the airport and bar her. So you gotta pass this quiz. It's lightning round, okay, and it starts like this: best thing about Brazil. What is the best thing about Brazil?
Vibes.
The vibes. I agree with that. I'm definitely into the Brazilian vibes. And what is the worst thing about Brazil?
Flakiness.
Oh, she hit a sore point, guys. Listen, Brazilians are flaky as hell. So just be prepared for that. Like if you're setting something up with somebody, just don't expect it to happen until it happens. Yes, Brazilians are flaky. All right. Moving on to the next question. Favorite Brazilian food?
Oh, that's easy.
Oh my God, guys! I gotta show you what a muqueca looks like. Oh, let me show you what a muqueca is, because that's my favorite food in Brazil too. And muqueca. So guys, a muqueca is like this stew with shrimp, with crab, with lobster, with everything. It is the best fucking thing ever. Yes, and you can get one. Yeah, you get the one in Bahia that's made with palm. It's palm oil, right? Dende oil. But you also have one from Espírito Santo, which is another state. I'm sorry, which is a little different, but it's just as delicious. And muqueca is just like I feed on that stuff. I feed on that stuff. What's your least favorite Brazilian food?
Oh, I can't deal with the brigadeiros.
A lot of foreigners don't like brigadeiros, guys. I love them, but I grew up with them. It's an acquired taste. It's a little too sweet, though. I agree. Brigadeiro is like a little ball of condensed milk with chocolate, and you can sometimes find ones that aren't so sweet, and it'll taste a little bit better, but it can be complex. All right.
Too strange, yes.
Favorite drink in Brazil?
I love suco de limão. I love lime juice.
That's lime juice, guys. They don't do the lemons here as much as in Brazil. I mean, in the US, but you get yourself a nice lime juice, and it is delicious. And what is, let me see, your best place you have visited in Brazil?
The best place I visited?
Yes.
Well, let's see. Oh, that's hard to say because I've stayed places more so. But I would say the best place I have visited. Oh, that's hard. I love this town, Sahagranji, which is close to Itakare. It's really special. And I love Salvador. I can't choose. I love Salvador. I love Sao Paulo. I love it. Oh, my God. It has to be one of those three. So I'm going to choose Sahagranji.
Sahagranji, what you guys can see on the screen there, it looks gorgeous. And what's the most overrated location or thing in Brazil?
Oh, that's easy. Rio.
Aha! I'm telling you, folks, it's the number one answer on this show. Now, I do have some people on the show who are Rio de Janeiro lovers, and God bless them. I'm not one of them, but Rio is the number one answer for the most overrated. Sorry, Rio. But it's worth a visit at least once, guys. Definitely worth one visit, and you may fall in love. I know people that just fall in love with Rio, and God bless them. I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan. Best place to chill. Now, I'm going to consider São Paulo your city. So what's the best place to chill in São Paulo?
Oh, to chill. I love Beco down and just checking out the art. I love Ibirapuera at the park. Oh my God, the city park in São Paulo, the best.
Ibirapuera. Ibirapuera Park, which is one of the most beautiful parks in the world. It's gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous park. Although I'll give you a tip. Go there on the weekday, because on the weekend it is very busy.
Insane.
Yes. Favorite Brazilian musician or band?
Good one. For sure, of all time, Clara Nunes, musician, singer. Let's see, bands, my favorite bands. I mean, I love so many people. I love Gilberto Gil. I love samba. I'm really into samba.
Yes.
So, anything Clara Nunes,
yeah.
Some MTV stuff. Yeah, I love all of that.
Guys, Clara Nunes is considered like the queen of samba. She's the voice of samba. So I definitely recommend listening to some Clara Nunes. Just put on her greatest hits on YouTube, and you're going to hear some amazing music in a very powerful voice. Her voice was something else. Died young, sadly. And then last question. A word of advice for future visitors to this country, Brazil.
With Brazil, you have to, come with an open mind. There's going to be a lot of things that, you're not going to understand or going to feel awkward to you. But when you open yourself to Brazil, it will give you just the best experience you've ever had anywhere. It is such a heart place. It touches you, But you have to be open and not so much trying to bring your culture and traditions to Brazil.
That's wonderful advice. That's wonderful advice. Dip into the culture. Like, don't lose your identity. You're never going to stop being American or Canadian or Ghanaian or wherever you're from. But realize you're in a different country. I think that's good advice for wherever you travel. Like, yeah, because otherwise, why leave home if you just if you want to bring home to the new place? Like, then just stay the fuck home.
Exactly.
But when you're down here, I'm totally with that. I'm like, why did you leave your house if you're? I'm like, oh, I really wish Brazil had. Well, it doesn't.
Well, yeah, that's not. They don't do that down here. Yeah, exactly.
And then you just and especially guys, and at special advice if you come to São Paulo. And I again thank you folks that are here from the ACE video. Same thing I said in the video. São Paulo's not always an easy city to like deal with at face value. But once you put some work in, once you start putting some work in the city, man, it gives back. It's an amazing city.
Oh, yeah. You really expressed that beautifully on ACE, on the videos that you threw on. I mean, this is not like the place you're going to fall in love with the moment you touch down per se. But yeah, once you give it a little energy, you'll just see how magical the city is.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
unbelievable. Mm-hmm.
All right, so folks.
That's what
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, that's it.
That's it. Guys, we've been on for an hour and 44 minutes. This is supposed to be like a quick podcast, but Imara's fucking amazing. I love her to death. I can't wait till she's back in Sao Paulo. I do, man. When I connect to my peoples, they're my peoples forever. So you're in forever land with me.
Oh, thank you for having me, dear. I loved it.
Thank you, and I apologize for some of the technical difficulties. Thank you, everybody that's on. Like I always say, I'm very busy, as you can all see. If you want to follow a little bit more of my day-to-day life, follow me on Instagram at PhilRayMusic, and excuse me, and follow Imara at Find Your Free. So there she is, right there. There's her Instagram page. Let me put it like this so you can actually see it. There it is. So there's Imara at Find Your Free. I'm at Phil Ray Music, but we also have our new space that we opened downtown. You can see there, Espacio 337. There's some of the stuff that was going down over there on the weekend. A lot of music, a lot of jamming, a lot of good stuff going on down there. Okay. And yeah, if you're in the city, I want to see you. I want to meet you. And thank you, folks. It is time to go to bed. And no, and I'll be back when I get time. We will have episode 50 of the Brazil Expat Journal, the BJ you can trust, and I hope to have you guys there. Because it's a special number. Yeah, 50. We made it to 50, even with all the craziness down here. So, guys, have a good evening. Until next time, kisses, as they say here in Brazil, beijos, and reach out, okay? Connect with me. Bye-bye. See you, folks.